All right, welcome to Note Investor Podcast. I'm Dan Teppen, and today I'm joined by my good friend and certified mortgage advisor, Beth Hale. Beth, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Dan?
Good, good. Well, it's good to see you. You were actually one of the first people I met in the notes business. So you used to run a note meetup here in
Yeah.
Denver several years ago. But yeah, maybe tell us a little about you and like how you got started in notes.
Yeah, well, it was about 2012, and
Mm-hmm.
I could see the Denver market taking off. And that sounds like, I mean, compared to how it took off later, that was
Yeah.
nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
I had just gone into real estate investing, and I just kind of felt like I didn't want to be competing with every other rehabber out there. And I noticed someone teaching a notes class, and because I'm such a geek, being an ex software developer, that was just right up my alley. And it took me about a year to find somebody to mentor under,
Uh-huh.
but when I did, it was just something I loved from the beginning. And then in 2014, I started doing a note mastermind in Denver, which is how I met you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I joined that. Maybe it was like 2017 period I showed up in
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, and that was good fun. And we always had a steady but small crowd going to those, and everybody's always still today, whenever the rehab market gets tight in Denver, which is
Hmm.
mostly, then somebody's always wanting to hear more about note investing.
Yeah, and I still do business with some of the people from that. And there's a lot of people around Colorado involved in notes. Like now that I'm doing Call the Underwriter and other things, there's a lot of activity within the state. So I've considered trying to revive that meetup, but the only thing holding me back is there's only so much time in the day
Yeah,
to
well, if
do
you want to
everything.
collaborate on that, we could talk because maybe we could split that work between us.
Yeah, that might work out good. Yeah, I hesitate to like sign up for new
I
things.
understand. I understand.
Yeah. So what kind of notes like did you primarily focus on?
Well, at that time, I was primarily focused on non-performers.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a nice little business model that worked at the time of um, one investor with some self-directed IRA money, three non-performing notes. And that way, if one of them wasn't such a good I want such a good money maker, the other two would usually make up for it. And I have to say, my investors never lost money. I always made money for my investors and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably because I was so deep in the weeds a lot. The the rumor that you can delegate everything in this business seems to just be a rumor, and I ended up doing a lot of work myself that I couldn't seem to
Yeah,
delegate effectively.
I know when I started and the guy that I was learning from at the time, I think you worked with him too. Like he just, he kind of had this model of, oh, you've got all these vendors and the servicer does this and the attorney does that. And it's great. They just all do their things. But yeah, I pretty quickly found out it didn't quite work like that. You have to, I mean, yeah, you're going to have your vendors, but you really got to stay on top of them, especially with a non-performer.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there was a joke in the industry that loan servicing was the only industry where you didn't have to work for a living. And sometimes it really felt like that. And
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Like when I've looked at that industry, that's one that I would personally not touch with a 10-foot pole. Like I've had people ask me like, "Oh, are you gonna like start a servicer or do any of that?" And I'm like, "Heck no. I have zero interest in that. That just seems like a very tough business. As much as I get aggravated with them, I wouldn't want to do it myself."
yeah, it's a tough business, and the margin is so slim that
Yeah.
yeah, that's a funny little industry. And to answer your question more fully, so doing those non-performers obviously related into some performers.
Hmm.
Either I just bought them flat outright and they were categorized wrong, or we got them working out. So So I ended up with performers and
Oh, when you say categorize strong, you mean like you bought them as a non-performer, but they were actually kind of performing?
yeah, that happened to me once. That was a great little
I,
gem.
I've had some of those too. There was one I had 5 or 6 years ago when John Keith was selling off all the harbor stuff, and it was like right before New Year's, and he's like, "I have this one they want to get rid of. I can sell it to you, but only if you close it in like 2 days." And it was like 30% of the unpaid balance, and so I didn't have time to do the normal due diligence, but it was so cheap, I kind of made a calculated risk. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm getting into, but I'm gonna go for it. And I did it. And that loan paid steadily for like a couple years. Like it was basically a performing loan
That's
that I
awesome.
got for 30 cents on the dollar. Yeah, it was nuts. So
Yeah, that's
that's
awesome. Those numbers were pretty similar for me too. Yeah. And then and then back in 2020, I decided to get my loan origination license.
uh-huh.
Kind of fill out the other end of the business. And uh, early on, I sought out local people who were doing that. And one
Mm-hmm.
of them suggested that I do reverse mortgage. And um, I thought, well, that sounds kind of boring working with seniors, but okay. But the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, I adore working for seniors. I adore helping them with their financial issues. I adore explaining this product to them because it's so shrouded in mystery and fear. And it's such a
Yeah.
flexible product and it can do so much for them. And while that's certainly unrelated to my note business. That reverse mortgage is so flexible with the line of credit that you can get from that. Now, obviously, we're talking about people that are 62 or over to qualify for that. But,
Yeah.
how many rehabbers? First of all, I mean, you've been to John Fisher, or maybe you haven't,
Yeah.
but the average age in that room is pushing being
Yeah. And,
eligible.
and that's a local, for people who aren't familiar with that, it's like a local breakfast real estate investor meetup that they do in Denver.
Yeah, they do it every second Saturday of the month, and that's this coming Saturday, by the way. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
not only could some of those guys in that room get some equity out of their house with that reverse mortgage, wouldn't change their cash flow because they don't have any payment on it. They pay closing costs once, and they could use that line of credit to help fund their rehabs over and over after that. Not
Mm-hmm.
only that, those guys got neighbors, neighbors that are like, wow, I love what you're doing with the rehabs. I'd be too scared to do that. Maybe your neighbor's got access to a line of credit in his house through a reverse mortgage, and he can live vicariously through you by being your funder on top of your hard money loan for some of your loans.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, yeah, the reverse mortgage has a a reputation, has many reputations, but it has a reputation of being, I hate to say it, but the loan of last resort for the senior that's having cash flow problems, of which we
Right,
got
because
many.
they might have equity in their house, but they don't necessarily have other assets or income to live off of.
Yeah, or maybe they were squeaking by and now they need a new roof or they need a new boiler or something. And
Hmm.
so they don't really have that extra money. I run into a lot of people like that. They were just squeaking by, but every time they need something big, they're kind of strapped. And
Yeah.
the loan does work well for that, even as just an emergency fund for that line of credit to sit aside. But this is
Hmm.
also the loan of retirement strategy now. And again, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but let's say you've got a couple and they own their house free and clear. So here's the
Hmm.
value of the house. Let's say, imagine a circle that's the value of their house. Okay, so that circle is going up in value on an average countrywide of 4%, on an average in Colorado, 5.25%, because we enjoy a little bit better appreciation here because it's such a desirable state to live in.
Hmm.
So, so what if they got a line of credit out for just under half that amount, and they put that money down on, let's say, 3 rentals. And then they could get investor loans, DSCR loans, of course, for the other 3
Yeah.
properties. Well, now, not only do they not have a monthly payment on the loan they just got, but now they've
Hmm.
got appreciation times 4 instead of times 1. And, that's the difference for me between smart wealth and traditional wealth. Traditional wealth, oh, pay off your house, pay off your house.
Right.
Smart wealth, leverage what you do have and get appreciation times 4.
So that's basically like a reverse HELOC, basically. So
I
so
hate
so
to use
interest
the word,
accrues, but you don't. Yeah.
I
Well, maybe you
hate
can
to
explain it
use
to me because I don't fully understand those myself.
the reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So again, let's go back to that. Here's the value of the home. And let's say you
Hmm.
got out, a little pie. I can't really do that with my hands, but a little section of pie on that reverse mortgage. So on a $600,000 house, let's say you got 250,000 out on a reverse mortgage. If you owned the house free and clear. Now, obviously, we also use that reverse to pay off first liens for people, and that makes a huge difference in their cash flow. But
Hmm.
let's say they got 250,000 now on a line of credit through a reverse mortgage. Couple ways that's different than a HELOC. One,
Uh-huh.
there's no mandatory monthly payment on that reverse mortgage, so they don't have to qualify for the income, which when you're a senior living on a fixed income, that's tough to qualify for more loan.
Oh yeah, because I've been underwriting some of them, right? And a lot of times like the benefit checks are relatively small, and so it makes it
Exactly,
difficult. Yeah.
exactly. And well, I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but and also unlike a HELOC, let's say something crazy happens in the Denver market and everybody's house, gets reduced 50% in value. So now
Hmm.
that $600,000 house is worth 300,000. Well, on a HELOC, if you got a $250,000 HELOC out on that $600,000 house, and let's say you'd used like 20,000 of it, the bank's gonna, or the lender's gonna come along and say, hey, we're canceling any unused HELOC right now, like Wells Fargo did in July
Yeah,
2001, seeing this whole slowdown coming.
yeah,
It,
because I lived in Florida till the early 2000s, and when the financial crisis hit, I knew a lot of people who had HELOCs and the banks pulled them back. And then
yeah,
they,
I lived in
uh,
Florida till 2010. That's weird. I
oh,
didn't
I
know
didn't
about
realize that.
you.
That's funny. That's funny.
Anyway, that reverse mortgage line of credit, they can't touch that no matter what happens in the market.
Oh,
And if you don't use that line of credit with the reverse mortgage, any unused portion grows at the rate of the loan. Well, today we've got rates upper sixes, lower sevens. That's kind of a nice little thing to have a chunk of money making 7% on average year after year. Now,
hmm.
when I say making, they're not actually earning money, they're just getting access to more equity in their home. But still, that's a nice rate to have a chunk of money growing at 7%. I mean, you can't do that. You
So
can't do
so on
that
the
in the
re
market.
yeah, so on the reverse mortgage, since you're not making payments, like let's say I take out $100,000 to do investment properties, is the interest that accrues that just adds to the balance? So I would like start with that $100,000 balance, and then that would just like go up over time.
Well, to answer your question, that reverse mortgage does have interest just like any other loan. And
Hmm.
so on what is used, that is growing at the rate of the loan over,
Okay.
6 3/4 these days or whatever it is. So that
Hmm.
is growing, yes. But if you just get a line of credit out on a reverse mortgage and you don't touch that money, that never left the lender, so it's like it's never part of the loan. It's like
Hmm.
it's like a line you can tap into, but it's not part of the loan. So in your example, if you took out the $100,000 and started buying notes, then yes, that 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 unpaid balance is going to go up. But the idea in the government's head, because the government FHA is who insures this mortgage, should it ever get so big that the house go underwater on the
Well,
loan.
that was my next question. Like, what if you run out of equity? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Since 2018, the FHA got very, very conservative on the guidelines of a reverse mortgage so that they never would go underwater because it was the FHA that came in and bailed the lender out. And so
Mm-hmm.
FHA decided it wasn't good for anyone if this loan went underwater. So their guidelines are quite conservative. Like you have to be in your upper 80s to get 50% out on your house. So
Oh, okay. Did a lot of them go underwater after the financial crisis when prices really crashed, especially in
no,
certain
I
markets?
don't know. That was before my time.
Yeah.
I imagine some of them did, which is how this product got one of its negative connotations, which is, oh, you're going to lose your house. Yeah, nobody loses their house. It's guaranteed that that house, you don't lose the house with a reverse mortgage unless you quit paying taxes or insurance, period. You stay on title. The
Yeah.
lender doesn't take title to the house. That's another rumor. So, and they loan so little that they have figured that the house will grow in value more than the loan will grow in value.
Okay. So if for some reason the lender did get upside down, either housing prices crashed or the borrower lived to 130
Right.
or whatever, then basically the lender would eat it at that
No,
point, or no?
no. The FHA steps in and makes the lender whole.
Oh, so the government would eat it
Government would eat it, which is why the
in that
government has
case.
um, such conservative guidelines. As I said, you got to be late 80s to get half the equity out of your home.
Oh, wow.
Well, not, I shouldn't say half the equity, half the value of the home, some of that
Hmm.
money could obviously go toward paying a first mortgage.
So if you're not taken out for investments, do people normally just withdraw like a certain amount every month for living expenses? Like they kind of use it as an
This is
income
such a
stream
flexible
or
product. It really honestly depends. Some people are looking for income, and this product is so strong for that because again, if you've got a good chunk of line of credit sitting there, maybe you're $250,000 and you take less than 7% a year, well, that line of credit's going to grow 7% a year. So you're never going
hmm
to run out of money. I do that a lot for people. Um, Other things people have to do is, maybe they want to do an add-on to their house. Maybe they want to pay off that first mortgage and just change their cash flow. So instead of a $1,500 payment on their mortgage every month, they have zero now. Um,
Uh-huh.
but but there's three ways to get paid on a reverse mortgage. You can do the line of credit, which is kind of like, okay, here's your line of credit. It's yours to do with however you please going forward. Then there's what they call term, which is let's say somebody was 60, let's say somebody was 65 and hated their job, but they wanted to work till 70 to maximize Social Security. Well,
Uh-huh.
maybe they get a reverse mortgage and then take so much a month for 5 years until they reach 70 so that they could supplement the income from their job and then they could quit their job, but delay taking Social Security till 70. That's called
I,
term.
yeah, I worked with some people that age that took a different approach. They just retired in place. They stayed on the job, but just didn't do a whole lot. Just didn't do a whole lot. That's,
And
that's
then the
another
third
option.
option is what they call tenure, pays you for life. So, then the actuaries are going to calculate how long they think you're going to live,
Hmm.
and then they're going to calculate how that line of credit can grow, and factor in all these things. And so that's not usually a great option, but I'm just doing one now for somebody that's working out perfect for. Her husband died, so she lost his Social Security income, and then of course she'll do the survivor benefit thing where she'll end up with his and lose hers because that's the
Uh-huh.
amount. But still, she's kind of going to be, and so we're going to get her 40,000 at closing to pay off her car and a couple other debts. And then
Hmm.
she's gonna have almost $1,400 for life. And and that's a good deal for her because that more than makes up what she lost for her Social Security. So, and this product is so flexible. If you decide you want to change your income option over time, you can just do it as long as your line of credit supports it, as long as the loan supports it. So if you were doing tenure and you say, oh, you know what? I want to invest in Dan Deppin's note business because he's doing so good. I want to stop
Mm.
that and just take a lump sum now and invest that with Dan. You can do that. It's a really, really flexible product. It's hard not to love this product because it does so much for my folks.
Yeah. So my next question is, so as a note investor, I've seen non-performing reverse mortgages for
Oh,
sale, which I think
let's talk about that.
basically means, yeah. So I haven't actually bought one. Like I got close
Let's
to
talk
buying
about that.
one once, but so just to set it up for people that aren't familiar, sometimes you'll see, and actually,
They're on the foreclosure
in
list.
the last year, yeah, like I've actually been seeing more of these around, but they're non-performing reverse mortgages where the borrower is basically deceased. So, but yeah, maybe you can explain to
Yeah,
us
it's
how
not
those
really a
work.
non-performing reverse mortgage because there was no performance. There was no mandatory monthly payment.
Yeah,
The
but I see them
single
listed
way,
as NPNs when they sort them
I
out.
guess
Yeah.
technically you could say that the way these end up on the foreclosure list is, it's always a lack of communication because obviously, the lender has a procedure that they know eventually their borrower is going to die. They have a
Mm-hmm.
procedure in effect for that. Before you get closed on a reverse mortgage, you submit an alternate contact, your son, your financial advisor, whatever. And their contact information goes with the lender at closing. And that's who the lender contacts when they realize that their borrower is no longer occupying the house.
Mm-hmm.
Should that person not respond and tell them what's going on, the lender's going to catch on that, oh, taxes aren't getting paid, oh, insurance isn't getting paid, and they're going to keep trying to contact both the borrower and the alternate contact. When eventually they can't, they have no choice but to put that on the foreclosure list and begin foreclosure process to get the only thing that collateralized this loan or any other loan that you and I talk about, which is the house.
Right. So as a note investor, I don't know if you've ever bought those, but how would you price something like that?
Well, now reverse mortgages are a little tricky on the deed side, and here's why. On a forward mortgage or traditional mortgage, on a
Mm-hmm.
traditional mortgage, let's say that went to buy the house, and the lender put up 80% of the house, So going back to that $600,000 house, that's what, 480,000. So at closing, that lender goes down to the recorder's office and does a deed of trust for 480,000 because he's never gonna be owed less than that,
Mm-hmm.
or be owed more than that, excuse me. He's never gonna be owed more than that, at least he hopes, because that balance is gonna start going down. Well, the reverse mortgage is the opposite. If we have an initial balance, like with my 10-year lady that I'm doing the current reverse for, of we have an initial balance of $50,000, maybe 40,000 plus a few closing costs. If we have an initial loan balance of 50,000, we can't go down to the recorders and file a deed of trust for 50,000. That's not going to work, right? Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So so what they do on a reverse mortgage is they record a deed of trust at the county for 150% of the value of the home at appraisal for the reverse mortgage. So on that
Okay.
$600,000 house, the lender at closing, even though they might have only loaned, that loan balance might have started at 75,000, they get a deed of trust against their house for $900,000,
Okay.
which has a couple of effects. One, somebody slips on that person's sidewalk, goes, oh, let's sue. Let's see what they owe on their house, and finds them, 300,000 underwater. But
Uh-huh.
again, that deed of trust is there for the loan to grow into, because the lender doesn't know how big that reverse mortgage will get, right? Could start at
Mm-hmm.
250,000, and then, it's going to grow. The value of the house is going to grow. It's going to grow. So they don't know. So it's very difficult just looking at the county. Now I'm pretty good at it just because I know where interest rates were back when it closed and stuff like that. Someone can call me,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got mutual friends that do call me and say, hey, Beth, got this foreclosure on the foreclosure list, got a reverse mortgage on it. Because you can't tell from the county what is owed on that. A title agent is going to have to reach out to the to the lender and get a payoff amount and or the borrower, if the borrower is still in the picture. That's
Yeah, I mean,
normally.
when I've seen them on tapes, like the seller will generally list like, here's the balance that's owed.
And well, I don't know where they're getting that, honestly.
Well, no, I think it's ultimately like the people who own the loan are selling it, so they know all the information. But but suppose you saw one, like, let's say, just making up numbers, it's a $500,000 house, and there's a reverse mortgage with a balance of 250,000. Like, if I was going to buy that loan, like, how would that work?
Well,
Am
you're
I
going to
am I
get no
getting the
payments
house and
since
selling the house and paying off the loan, or
I,
yeah, I'm not.
I mean, if this is a non-performer, I guess you would have to assume that the borrowers are gonna want to sell the house and pay off the loan. So
Mhm.
that would be, your pennies on the dollar stuff. I would still really, want proof of what's owed on that. Because
Right.
again, it's not like, um, but if it's a regular old reverse mortgage, I mean, I hope you're very patient would be my answer. Because, you know, the the lender does not get made whole until the loan matures, which is either at death or the borrower moving out of the property.
Yeah,
So,
the ones that I've seen is where the borrower's passed away.
okay, so the borrower's passed away, and yeah, that makes sense. So then,
Hmm.
um, well, and again, you're gonna get, just like any other loan, you're gonna get what's owed on the reverse. So you would price that the way you would price something that's gonna have to be paid, gonna have to go through foreclosure and go through probate and all that stuff.
Yeah, which could potentially take a while, I'm
Yeah,
guessing,
I
depending.
personally don't feel that's a great market, but I
Yeah.
haven't really looked into that much. That's not my interest.
Yeah, I've looked at them a little. I'm not super interested in them because, generally I don't want to end up with properties, or I try
But I
not
have
to,
to
even when I
ask,
do non-performing. Yeah.
there's pretty much one servicer that buys all the paper in reverse that I see.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they have in place procedures to be very efficient at the end game.
Hmm.
Why on earth are they selling a reverse with no hair on it? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't that just go through the process like anything else? I just, that would be one question I had.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never looked at them that closely. I wonder, did the lenders ever sell off reverse mortgages before the borrower passes away? Like maybe they,
Yeah, just like any other
like anything
loan,
else,
these are
maybe
sold.
maybe they filter down to people who don't have those processes in place and they just want to get rid of it. I don't know.
Unlike a traditional mortgage, you don't have performers and non-performers on the reverse side. There's nothing to
Hmm.
perform because, other than taxes and insurance being paid, there's no way to have a performer versus a non-performer. So, I mean, I guess the only thing I could see them doing, because like I say, these are big boys that are buying up all that reverse paper. The only thing I
Uh-huh.
can see them wanting to sell is a non-performer. And then, I mean, is a
Something
somebody
was something wrong, like
that's
a
died
documentation
for some
issue
reason,
or
hasn't paid taxes and insurance. Maybe they moved off to assisted living or whatever. And
uh-huh.
so the only thing I could see that, but even then, they've got to have a really pretty efficient procedure in place for that, because
Hmm.
that happens. People die. That's how these loans end. So for them to appear on a tape, I'd have to question if you weren't getting into something that they didn't want to get into, that's kind of off the
Hmm.
beaten path, and I'd be wary about that.
Okay, makes sense. So,
Just fear of the unknown there. I mean, maybe there's a title issue. Maybe there's
right.
I had an issue the other day. This woman by the way, you can refinance a reverse mortgage. Once a few years goes by, the borrower gets older, so they're eligible right there for more equity in their home, just because they're
Uh-huh.
closer to loan maturity. if rates go down and if the value of the house continues
Oh,
to go
yeah.
up.
So if somebody gets older, yeah, value of the house
Yeah,
goes
they
up. Their age
refinance.
is older, so they can get more out and then they can,
Yeah,
yeah.
they refinance. Well, this girl called me for a refinance and she said, well, there's a problem with appraising the house. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, the shed's too, next door to her was one of those big electrical towers. And
Uh-huh.
she said, well, there's a problem with the shed on my property being too close to the electrical tower. And I'm thinking, no, there isn't. You know, I mean, they didn't change the distance. And even if they did, you're grandfathered in. But it,
Yeah.
fortunately, this business is so small. I ran into the ones who, I was able to find the ones that did the appraisal a while back.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out it had nothing to do with the shed, with the tower. It was the wires drooping, between
Oh,
towers.
yeah.
There was a
I
horiz there was a horizontal easement based on that. And I said to her, well, how'd you get the first reverse mortgage? The appraiser shouldn't have let that go through appraisal because it
yeah.
busted the easement. But my title girl said to me, sometimes those things slip by. So
Huh.
maybe you buy one of those reverses off a tape and you think, and you go to foreclose and there's all this title problem
Yeah, the
because
stuff that comes
the
up.
deeds aren't right because they built the shed and it was, it wasn't legal because of the easement. I run into stuff like this every day.
Yeah, I wasn't a reverse mortgage, but I had an REO last year and they had this like big storm in, I think it was in Indiana. And the cleaning crew went out to clean up the backyard and there had been this windstorm and they had some of those like power lines that kind of hung over the backyard and they went down in the storm. And there's like there's power lines all over the yard, so we can't do it. So we had to get that cleaned up and then,
Ooh,
they had to
yeah.
come out and fix the power lines and then they got the yard and we got it sold. But yeah, that's probably a good stopping point. Any last thoughts or ways people can get a hold of you if they want to learn
Yeah,
more?
well, I'm easy to find. I can give my number out and my email now, or we could flash that up on the screen later, or both.
Well, no, you can just give it now, and then afterwards,
Okay.
just send me anything you want. I'll add contact info in the description
Okay.
as
Yeah, my
well.
number's 303-956-3800. I'm happy to answer any questions about any mortgage, really, with no obligation. I love talking about these. And my email is my first and last name, Beth.Hale, Hale, at efinitymortgage.com. And efinity is spelled like infinity, except an E instead of the first IN. So efinitymortgage.com.
Cool. Well, thanks, Beth. Appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been a delight.
Yeah, anytime. All right. See ya.